Alright guys, this is the build that I am currently running with the Fire Staff. And I want to put some emphasis on the word currently there because I do change this build out pretty frequently depending on what I am doing. Open world PvP, 50v50, PvE, a lot of different things. And I do want to put this out there before I start. A lot of these passives that I choose to take, especially the ones on the left side, are because of the fact that I've run two mana consuming weapons, which is the Ice Gauntlet and the Fire Staff. This build that you're looking at is more catered towards the Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff combo, just because mana is an issue. But the only passives that I would really look at replacing here if you aren't running that combo is probably Spell Focus and Flare. The reason I take these passives is to pretty much just help me out with my mana management. Especially running Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff, you just go pretty frequently. Even after getting the 200 intellect plus 10 mana bonus, it is still pretty hard on the mana bar. So if you are not using the Ice Gauntlet as your secondary, I would look at maybe changing these passives up. But for the most part, outside of that, it's pretty baseline. But getting into it, currently I am taking every single passive on the left side, just because they're way too good to pass up. Two I mentioned before for mana management, and everything else for just flat damage bonuses and CDR, basically. The best passives in this tree that you'll be taking every single time, most likely, even if you are running something else than the Ice Gauntlet as your combo, are Clear Mind, which is just a 10% empower while at 50% mana or more. Clear Casting, which is 10% more damage if you have not taken damage in the last 3 seconds. And Spell Slinger, which increases your crit chance by 15%. And then Prophet of the Fire God, which increases your critical strike damage by 20%. So all of these passives are pretty baseline, and you're going to be taking them almost every single time that you are using the Fire Staff. If you're not running Ice Gauntlet as your combo, I would look at replacing Spell Focus and Flare with other passives, possibly on the right side. The one passive that I am still on the fence about on this left side is Singe. I do find myself switching that out pretty frequently. It just doesn't really seem to have that big of an impact on my damage, and I feel like I could use that point somewhere else to get, I don't know, a bit more of a bonus, a bit more of a benefit. The only ability that I take on the left side is Fireball, which is pretty baseline for anyone that's running the Fire Staff. Fireball basically just shoots out a catapult-like fireball that is fairly easy to hit. It's pretty hard to miss it unless your enemy dodges it. If you are shooting at the ground, at least, which I would recommend. And it leaves a burning field on the ground doing slight AoE damage. The passives for this ability are pretty lackluster, so I stay away from them personally, and I would recommend that you do as well, just because those 2 points you could spend on much better things. Now for the right side passives, you have a bit more to work with, and it's a bit more of a kind of a pick and choose here. Every one of the passives on the right side does have their uses, but the two that I stick with 100% of the time are Pyromania, which is 20% more damage while below 50% health. It has its uses. And then Let It Burn, which is 10% fortify for 2 seconds when burn deals damage. The reason I take this is because I do have a few passives and one ability, a couple abilities actually, that do cause a burn. So I find pretty good use out of this. The other passives are honestly kind of up to you and kind of up to you as a player and just your playstyle with the Fire Staff, depending on if you are running Ice Gauntlet as a second weapon or something else. I'm currently trying the Watch It Burn passive, which causes your light attacks to leave a slight burn on them, because I am running Let It Burn for the Fortify, so I get, pretty good use out of the Fortify because of that passive. But at the same time, I could also see a huge benefit of running Combat Speed for 10% haste after casting an ability, Trial by Fire, which gives you a fire shield, dealing 5% weapon damage to nearby enemies after being struck, which I found okay use out of. I kind of switched out of it pretty quickly though. And then Kindle, which causes your burnings to last 20% longer, which honestly isn't too impactful, but especially with this build, with Singe, Watch It Burn, Burn Out, and Incinerate, I do have a lot of burns going out there, so maybe I could find more use out of this passive than I think. And especially if you're running Flamethrower, if you do happen to be running Flamethrower just because you are a fan of it, Kindle is definitely viable with that ability. Combat Speed is most likely what I will be ending up using long-term instead of the Singe passive on the left side. I just haven't found much use out of Singe as well, just because it only causes a burn when you do crit, which is often, but not often enough for me to put a whole point into it. I just think I would get more use out of Combat Speed, so I'll probably be putting a point into that. The two abilities that I do run on the right side are Incinerate, which is just a massive AoE ability that deals a ton of damage, 130% weapon damage, causes a burn, and ends up stacking more burns, healing you for 20% of the damage dealt, and hitting twice after taking its passives. If you are running Incinerate with this build, which I do recommend, I highly recommend taking its passives. Incinerate feels kind of like a wasted ability if you don't have the passives going for you. The thing I do want to say about this ability is that it definitely does not feel as good as it used to. The range was reduced. You're not unstoppable while casting it anymore, and it seems to do a bit less damage than it used to. During preview week last August, it was just doing an insane amount of damage, and the range was much higher than it is now. So you just kind of have to be careful using this ability, especially in open world small scale PvP, because it does leave you really vulnerable, and honestly can just be doing more bad for you than good if not used at the right time. The other ability that I take is Burnout, which actually blew me away, to be honest, when I started running it again. It's totally changed from what it used to be in the preview week last year. The range was shorter, it was harder to control. It just wasn't that fantastic of an ability, so after a friend recommended it to me, shout out Sleazy, yeah, it actually blew me away, so now I'm sticking to that pretty frequently, to be honest. I don't see myself changing out of that ever. And it also provides my Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff combo with a lot of mobility. Being able to change direction mid-burnout, doing loads of damage, and just causes a strong stack of burning. The passives for this ability are also a must-take alongside Incinerate, reducing Fire Staff cooldowns by 5% for each enemy hit, and trust me, you can hit a lot of enemies. It goes through enemies. So if you get this in the back line, you can hit anywhere from like 5 to 10 enemies, right? If you change direction and aim it at your target. And then increasing its rage by 50%. So those are definitely necessary to take if you are running Burnout. Now for the other abilities, Flamethrower definitely has its place. I am a fan of the ability itself, but I just haven't found it to be better than the other abilities that I'm currently running. Fireball, Incinerate, and Burnout just seem to have way more of an impact in pretty much everything that I'm doing for most scenarios. I could see Meteor Shower being rad for 50v50 wars. I did try it on my latest video before this one. I did try it for that war. It was doing okay damage. I think there was a bug with it though. I think a lot of the damage that it was doing just wasn't appearing. So I could see it. I could see this ability having its uses. Just a ton of AoE damage, but it does leave you stationary, which is the downside of it. Pillar of Fire is just, in my opinion, way too difficult to hit. It doesn't hit too hard, and it's just not rewarding enough in terms of you know, the risk that you take casting it. It takes about a second to cast it. You kind of stand there. You're pretty easy to hit. So especially if you miss, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. I do end up actually taking neither of the ultimates on both sides of the tree. I do get this question asked a lot. I just don't find, I don't know, a lot of use out of either of them. Rune of Helios, because I'm never really stationary enough to take full advantage of it. I'm moving around a lot, and I kind of spam roll. I fireball roll. You know, Burnout brings you out of that. So I just don't think it's worth the point. And then Reheat, because Flare and Spell Focus kind of provide enough mana management by themselves. So I just don't think I would find much use out of that mana regen from that. I could see it having its uses for PvE things though, but the Spell Focus actually does give back a lot of mana pretty quickly. It's the passive in the top left of the left side of the tree. So that combined with Flare, I just kind of find myself being okay on mana pretty often. And if I'm not, I usually have a mana pot or two to consume, which honestly isn't too bad. You know, you shouldn't feel too bad about having to use a mana pot, especially running Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet. So I just find that these two passives kind of work well without having to use Reheat. And especially if you are you know, Flare is really nice just to be able to have. Tip number 1 is casting Burnout into a shielded target causes the Burnout animation to cancel. So just be wary of that. Second tip is to heavy attack into Fireball animation cancel. This is a really easy way just to get out a lot of damage really quickly. Third tip is using Fireball aggressively and shooting it into the ground instead of trying to direct impact. When I first started to learn how to use Fireball, I was trying too often to get a direct impact instead of just shooting it into the ground and getting the same amount of damage. The fourth tip is that you are actually able to turn Burnout. Most of you probably know this, but if you don't, this actually is super helpful and just grants a little bit more mobility for the Fire Staff. The fifth tip is that it's never really a bad idea just to stand in the backline and spam heavy auto attacks from a range for mana conservation and high damage. So for stat distribution, this is what I'm running currently. I have obviously a lot of points in intelligence. I run Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, which scale both off of intelligence. This plus 200 intelligence marker is absolutely insane. It basically changes your whole playstyle if you're running the weapon combo that I am. Or even without it, it's super helpful. Plus 10 mana after a dodge is just makes the gameplay just really fluid. It was just an amazing power spike when I first hit this. How I first went about stats was that I hit 150 marker first in intelligence, and then I drop down to constitution after that, just for the plus 20% stronger mana pots and health pots. But I think if I did it again, I would get to the 200 first before dropping down into constitution, and then stack a lot of points into constitution after that. And I think where I'm going from here is, I'm kind of just tossing a lot of points in intelligence right now. I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing with attribute points at the moment, just because this isn't too strong. Plus 30% duration of damage over time spells, and this might be good, but there's no way I can hit this anyways, so I'm not really thinking about it for now. But yeah, I think from here I'm going to just start tossing some more points to constitution, maybe get to the second bracket just for a little bit more health based off of my mana, and then see where to go from there. Now for gear, there's not too much to go over here. This is obviously changing pretty often. I mean, I'm only level 48 right now. Well, I shouldn't say only. That's decently high. I've been playing a bit. But, you know, a lot of these pieces kind of go in and out pretty often. But the biggest thing, and my main goal with this, and yours should be as well, if you are playing a mage class like I am, is to just always be in light, right? So you want to get as close as you can to 15, because 15 pounds of armor weight is the limit if you want to stay in light, which makes it so that your dodge roll is incredibly fast. It goes far, and you know, it's just a really good evade for a lot of melees. So I'm at 14.7 right now, which is really good. This is kind of what you want to be at, you know, anywhere close to 15, 14.7, 14.8. And I do have a lot of medium pieces on right now, I think, if not all medium pieces. Here's my helmet. Medium headwear, 17 intelligence with a socket. And I put the slash damage absorption in there just for a little bit more defense against Great Axe users. And obviously the passive isn't helping me at all. It's I think it's a musket passive, but I'm just using this just because the intelligence, and it's a medium headpiece. And my chest piece is I think it's the third tier of faction gear. And I switched to the stats to constitution and intelligence, and with another slash damage absorption for the Great Axe users. Pretty decent chest piece. And now with the gloves and the boots, I'll go over these at the same time. Got the Harvester gloves and the Harvester shoes. And both of these give insane intelligence. Obviously 17 there and 15 there. And they're both medium pieces. Medium glove and medium footwear. But they're super low weight. And I think that's because of the Harvester part of it. I think just the Harvester set is medium, but it just gives really low weight. So this is obviously perfect for a mage class because it's medium and it gives a lot of intelligence. And then the pants are the same thing as the chest, but just the pants version. And I somehow got it to be epic. I bought it from the Syndicate faction, and they just turned epic. So I was like, all right, switch it to Constitution Intelligence with the seal, put the slash damage absorption in there, and so I'm rocking those. Now I'm at 14.7. My weapons currently is a 444 gear score fire staff. It's a tier 4. I think I bought this from the auction house, or it was just a lucky drop. The focus is obviously pointless, but I'm more looking at the damage and the fire damage on it, and it gives intelligence, right? So I'm only missing out on like 6 or 7 intelligence, but I can't find anything better than this at the moment. Then my ice gauntlet is 440, a little less than the fire staff. Gives constitution intelligence, which is totally fine. Constitution is just as good as intelligence. You can just respec in and out, depending on what the piece gives. I put the 30% of damages converted to arcane in there because I was going into the depths, which is the 3rd dungeon, level 45 dungeon, and it's corrupted inside. So arcane is super effective against corrupted. So I just tossed that in there. I haven't changed the stats. I don't really know too much about which gems are good to use. I know there's a gem that makes it so that you do more damage when you're at full stamina. So I'll try that one out as soon as I get a couple weapons that I'm going to be sticking with for a while. These kind of go in and out pretty often, so. And then my jewelry currently is, oops, not that fantastic. This is my necklace. I'm just using it for the constitution, and then the 6.8% more maximum health. The haste I apply lasts 10% longer, which is decent for a couple of my passives. I think I kind of get a little bit of use out of it. My ring, I kind of switch in and out as well. 16 constitution, 4% chance at rare items. Then I have this one, which is 17 constitution. Just one more point, and then when I'm hit below 50%, gain 81 stamina. So I'm kind of switching those in and out for PvP and PvP, or sorry, PvP and PvE things. And then my earring is also not the best. This is just the best thing I could find at the time. 7 intelligence, not horrible. Some arcane damage absorption, which isn't probably doing much, but it came with it, so. Alright guys, that will be the end of the guide for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I do stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/BreadyTV. If you guys ever want to come hang out, feel free. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Later, guys.